Welcome back, AP Gov students. Today is Chapter 5 of Keeping the Republic, titled Fundamental American Liberties. If you don't have Keeping the Republic, it's fine because the content is still going to be the same. I'm going to be going over all the key terms and notes for this chapter to help me get a 5, so I encourage you to take notes along as well. Rights, legal entitlements, and privileges held by citizens within governments. They are a resource and a power for citizens to protect them from government. I think viewing rights as a resource for citizens is a big part of what rights actually mean. People use their rights to do certain things. One of them, like participate in government, participate in the economy, be free, just being able to do things. Rights are a big power for citizens, and not only do they protect them from the government infringing on them, but it allows citizens to be able to live their lives in a more free way. Writs of habeas corpus, prisoner rights to be brought before a judge. It is important in ensuring the fair treatment of people in the criminal system. So prisoners aren't just thrown in jail for nothing. They have to be brought in front of a judge and have an actual trial to determine their guilt or innocence. There was a huge problem around the Civil War where Abraham Lincoln partially suspended these rights, or these writs, I should say, around the Civil War so they could arrest war criminals more easily without having to have them all stand trial. And that was viewed as that was kind of a black mark on Abraham Lincoln during his rule. Bills of attainder, laws that single out a specific person or group. They are forbidden in order to ensure that all laws target people equally. So you're not allowed to write laws that are specifically made to target a specific race or a specific gender or a specific group of people. Laws have to apply to everyone equally. Some people can't murder and are allowed to do it while other people can't. That's not how it works. Ex post facto laws that make a crime illegal after it is committed. They are not allowed in order to protect people from unfair prosecution with the legal system. So somebody can't just do something and the government, they won't like it and just make it a crime and then prosecute them. That's not how it works. 14th Amendment, states cannot abridge the rights outlined in the Bill of Rights. It ensured that all levels of government must protect the rights of citizens. It became the basis for Supreme Court incorporation. So the rights outlined in the Bill of Rights, they were technically, when they were written, federal guarantees. The state governments weren't required to always uphold the Bill of Rights, but the 14th Amendment after the Civil War said that all people in all levels of government have to be treated under the principles of the Bill of Rights. However, this wasn't instituted automatically. People had to challenge infringements on their rights through Supreme Court cases, and that's called incorporation. That's a huge part of AP Gov. Incorporation, the process of nationalizing the Bill of Rights through court decisions. Although it is a slow case-by-case process, it ensures that no level or body of government can intrude upon the rights granted by the Bill of Rights. How this works is if someone believes their rights under the Bill of Rights are being violated by a state action, they can take that to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court will rule, either way, and they'll rule, for example, that the state government was violating somebody's rights under the 5th Amendment, then the 5th Amendment is incorporated. Establishment Clause prevents the government from endorsing a specific religion. It provides a clear separation of church and state, preventing the government from conducting religious persecution. So the government is not allowed to establish a certain religion. They can't establish Christian Catholicism as the religion and all the religions are banned. They can't do that. So the government cannot support a specific religion. Free Exercise Clause allows free religious activity. It allows all people to believe in their religion. However, the actions they take on behalf of their religion can be restricted as ruled on by the courts. So people in America can believe what they want. They can subscribe to any religion that they want. However, their actions based on that can be regulated to an extent by the government, and that extent is kind of outlined by court decisions. So, for example, if you murder somebody based on your religion, you're not just allowed to claim free exercise. There are a lot of nuances in how the court looks at free exercise actions in court cases. Compelling state interest, concept of the government having justification to restrict religious actions. It is the baseline test for establishing whether the government can restrict certain religious actions if such actions provide significant harm to a person or society. So the state has to have a real interest in restricting someone's religious activity, and that has to be ruled on by the courts. There are a couple required cases surrounding free exercise and compelling state interest test. Clear and present danger test discerns if speech creates immediate consequences. Although now outdated, it was a long-held standard for justifying when free speech can be restricted. Similar to the compelling state interest test for free exercise, the clear and present danger test applies to free speech. The court rules on to what extent free speech is allowed, and the clear and present danger test, which is now changed through further court decisions, but what it said was if speech is creating a clear danger to people or society, then it can be restricted and regulated. Imminent lawless action test discerns if speech creates immediate illegal actions. This is the more applicable free speech test now. It is a heightened standard of justification which only allows speech to be restricted if it causes immediate illegal activity. So this changes the definition a little bit, where more speech is allowed only up to the point where if you say something that inspires immediate illegal activity. Meaning you have to inspire someone to commit a crime on the spot with that speech. That can be restricted. Prior restraint, limiting speech before it is published. The courts have a heavy bias against prior restraint, almost always opting to not allow the government to restrict certain speech by law before it can be published. This goes into the free press part of the First Amendment. The government can't define things that cannot be reported by the press before it is published. The government cannot make a list of things that the press cannot report. And the courts almost always side with the press in terms of the government coming out and saying, hey, all this stuff, it can't be reported on. The courts say, no, that cannot happen. You have to let speech be put out into the media before it can be ruled on if it's illegal or not. The Second Amendment, the right to bear arms, it has evolved from once being a provision for having a standing army, it is now a basis for people owning guns. The Second Amendment is a huge part of modern American politics. It always has been. The gun control debate, everything like that. I think the Second Amendment is one of the lesser important amendments in AP GOV. I think the First Amendment's obviously the most important. But an important and I think interesting part of the Second Amendment is how it evolved. It was once looked at as a provision for militias coming out of the Revolutionary War, where militias played such an important role. The government wanted to ensure that the people can arm themselves in case of government tyranny, but it has evolved through cultural understandings and further court cases that is now just a basis for people having guns. And I think how the Second Amendment has evolved and how it is viewed now compared to what it once was and what its original purpose was is a really interesting debate. Due process of law demands all laws to be reasonable and fair and carried out / ruled on fairly. It is the surrounding principle of Amendments 4 through 8, ensuring that the legal system treats people fairly. Amendments 4 through 8 are really hard to memorize because they all surround due process, and it's hard to figure out which things belong in which amendment. But just know that there are a ton of amendments in the Bill of Rights that all surround making sure people are treated fairly and that there's justice in the American legal system. Exclusionary rule prevents illegally obtained evidence from being used in court. It prevents the police or other investigative bodies from violating people's rights, but is also controversial because it can allow guilty people to go free via police mistakes. I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly, it's the Fourth Amendment that prevents unlawful seizure of property. So the police can't just walk in your house and investigate you without a warrant or something. And the exclusionary rule throws out any illegally obtained evidence. However, there are a few problems with this because the police can raid someone's house and gain all these evidence to put away a harmful criminal, but if they made a few mistakes in the legal process, or just one mistake really, all that evidence can be thrown out. Miranda rights, criminals must be informed of their rights. I think everyone kind of knows what these are if they've watched a cop show or something. It allows all people being processed under the legal system to know their rights, and it is also an American cultural symbol for due process. Like I said, if you've ever watched a cop show or a SWAT show or Chicago PD, whatever that's my favorite one. You should know Miranda rights. You have the right to remain silent. All evidence can be used against you, whatever. Things like that. That quote that everyone kind of knows is a cultural symbol for due process and the fair American legal system. And that's a huge part of the legitimacy of the legal system, is that you can have all these words written in official documents like the Constitution and specific laws and things like that, but the people knowing that the system is fair, or that at least it is set up to be fair, is a huge part. And that's why the Miranda rights are so important, because it's cultural just as much as it is technical. Right to privacy, indirect right granted via interpretations of the Bill of Rights, is a controversial and deeply divisive right, as it is not granted specifically, but rather is an implied right interpreted by the courts. So some amendments, like say the 4th Amendment, which is the right to be against unlawful seizure of property, the 5th Amendment, the right to not incriminate yourself, the 3rd Amendment, like not having soldiers walk in your house and live in your house. These amendments all imply what is known as like the zone of privacy, and that's how the right to privacy was implemented by the courts through Griswold v. Connecticut, which is not a required case, but you should probably know it. And then that evolves into Roe v. Wade and abortion. And the right to privacy has gone back and forth since Griswold. And then you have the new case, Dobbs v. Jackson. You can go into all this. I'm not gonna go to the whole thing about the evolution of like abortion and privacy cases. But just know that the right to privacy is a huge sparker, I guess you could say, for a debate, really healthy debate about government. Griswold v. Connecticut, here it is, established the right to privacy. It interpreted that certain amendments contain the principle of privacy and therefore grants a zone of privacy to the people. So the ruling on the various amendments that have a principle of privacy creates that right to privacy. Roe v. Wade extended the right to privacy to abortion. It became one of the most controversial court decisions, nationalizing the right to abortion while also providing precedent to use the right to privacy for further situations. Roe v. Wade was a required case in the AP Gov curriculum for a while, I believe, but now since it was overturned, it's not anymore, but you should still definitely know it. Dobbs v. Jackson, I think it's Women's Health Organization, or World Health, I don't know, but I just refer to it as Dobbs v. Jackson. It's a case that overturned Roe v. Wade. It overturned 50 years of precedent in Roe v. Wade, reinvigorating debate over the right to privacy and the right to abortion. It returned abortion matters to the states. So Roe v. Wade established federally that abortion is a protected right. Now it's returned to the states. So technically states can now legally do like a full abortion ban, although it's not really too popular in our modern culture. And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next chapter, and goodbye. Yo, if you're super cool and awesome, you should follow my Twitter, or X if you're that kind of person. It's at Clark4724. I post a lot of random stuff on there, but I also post channel updates and when my next videos are coming out. So if you're gonna keep watching my channel, then I recommend you follow, and thanks.